All right, so we're finally getting it done. We were wanting to do this, like we said, on streaming video and test out that technology before the end of the class, but we haven't found anything that would work. Then we tried a couple other things with Skype and everything. But this is what happens. This is what winners know that most people don't. There's always a way. Once you know there's always a way. Now, I promised last week and probably the week before and a couple other times that I tell you my version or my story around the hero's journey and how that happened for me. And I want to do that. And the best way to do it is to turn the clock back. Now, what it ended up being really cool is I'm up in the Waimea Canyon, this is actually one of the spots that the original videos that you viewed was filmed from. So it's sort of appropriate that we couldn't do it through streaming video. We looked all over for locations. It's so windy today. And anyway, we ended up overcoming these obstacles and ended up back in the exact spot that right across the street is where the very first video actually started. So my hero's journey. The best way to tell you this story is to turn the clock back in the 90s to Plum Island. And I'm sitting on my back porch. Now, Plum Island is a wildlife sanctuary. And the reason that it was a wildlife sanctuary or bird sanctuary, which I didn't know for 7 or 8 years, is because they don't spray for bugs. So there's a lot of bugs on the island. So I'm sitting on this little back porch, and I'm looking at this window. And in that window, inside my house, I can see this fly. And he's hitting the window pane. He's banging into that window pane. We've all seen that happen, right? Now, I get up and I open the door a little bit on the back porch so that fly can fly right out. But he doesn't. What's he end up doing? He hits that glass so many times that he ends up dead on the windowsill. Just like a lot of us have with our dreams, and we see a lot of people, they end up dead on the windowsill. Now, the significant difference between you and a fly is that the fly is actually unable to change his mind. We have the ability as human beings to change our mind. The fly didn't have that chance. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Probably what my wife was saying to me when I told her about this great discovery. And that is, I have too much time on my hands. It started making some money in network marketing, but somehow I wasn't secure in it. I wasn't secure in the industry. I wasn't secure in the business, making money, winning awards, but something didn't feel right to me. And it's because I hadn't really embraced and taken the hero's journey. And so let me just turn the clock back inside that story and tell you a little bit more about what happened. I get a call from my daughter, and she says, this was about a few months before she started to live with me full time. My son was already living with me. And basically what happened was she said, Dad, there's a science project that we're doing on the Amazon River, and can you come up to the school? Now, you have to understand that my son had asked me to attend several things of his, and I had never really been able to say yes. My answer was always, I'll try, I'll do the best I can, I'll get by. So I was all excited because now I'm doing network marketing full time, and I can pick my hours, and I say, oh yes, Chelsea, I can come up there. What time is it? And she said, it's 11 to 1, and I said, can I come early? And she said, Father, don't you embarrass me. You know how 8, 9, 10-year-old kids are. So anyway, I get in my J30, and that I talked about earlier, all sprayed with the Ralph Lauren cologne. And I'm driving up to the school feeling so arrogant, so full of myself, so cocky. This is such a great day for the Januszewski family. I've changed the economic destiny of our family. I can now be available for my children. And here's what happens. I'm thinking this is going to be the best day of my life and the best day of my family's life because it's a significant change. I could say yes and commit to that, not have to check my schedule and work and all that. Well, here's what happens. I get in that classroom at about 11 and she's all happy to see me. And what I thought was going to be the best day of my life ends up being the worst day of my life for a time. I'm standing there, and the tables or chairs and desks are broken down into little groups of 4 or 5. These are doing something on the plants. These are doing something on the rainforest. These are doing something on the animals. And I watch the door open and close and open and close, open and close. And every time it does, I notice kids are going like this. And I realized at that moment, and I wanted to run away, that experience was something my son had experienced for 17 years, 10 years, 12 years in school. And I realized I could never get that time back. I understood for the first time, because every once in a while a kid's eyes would light up and his father or his mother would run in and they'd be there for 2 or 3 minutes and then they'd leave. And just that 2 or 3 minutes was a taste for them. But there were only 3 of us that were there for considerable of the whole time. And I made myself stay to feel that pain. And I realized all those times when I said to my son, I'll try, I'll do the best I can. And sometimes I got by and sometimes I didn't. But if I did get by, it was only for a few minutes. I felt if I was there, I was taking food off the table. And if I wasn't there, I was a bad daddy. And I got in the car. I stayed for the 2 hours. And I watched those faces. And I realized the pain that my son had been through. And other kids. And the disappointment. And I got in that J30. Now crushed. And realizing the irreparable damage and missed opportunities that I had with my son. And I was driving back along the Merrimack River. And I had expressed to a mentor of mine this feeling that even though I was succeeding, I didn't feel connected. Davine talked about that earlier, about the connectedness, and I talked about the connectedness in this webcast. And he had told me that I would experience true success when I solved this riddle. I said, what is it? He said, well, Gandhi said, you must become the change that you seek. And Emerson said, nothing can permanently deny its own true nature. When you understand that those are the same statement, you'll have an opportunity to succeed, to embark on a different adventure in your life, and to give meaning to life, which we also talked about a little bit earlier. So here's what happens. The tears are just running down my face to the point I pulled over, and it hit me because he had given me a hint. I said, you got to help me out. I can't get those two together. He said, well, if you understand that there's only 4 questions in life that matter, it may be a clue. Of course, it was no clue for me because I wasn't ready. Like you may not have been ready until you signed up for this course. And the 4 questions were, what's the source of the spirit? What's the reason for our existence? What's worth living for? And what's worth dying for? And I'm pulling over, I'm sitting by the side of the Merrimack River, and tears are just streaming down my face, and bam, it hit me. And what went from the worst day of my life became the best day of the rest of my life. And this is what happened. I realized that when he had told me that Gandhi's statement, we must become the change that we seek, and Emerson, nothing can permanently deny its own true nature, they're not in opposition. They are the same. How are they the same? Well, our true nature is wonderful. It's divine. It's to be in service to other people. And that led me to understand that our true nature is that way, and it's not that we're trying to change into something else. It's that we're letting go of stuff. And Dave talked about that in her portion. It's letting go and reclaiming that divine person that we are. Because you see, the answer to the 4 questions came to me. And it's the same answer to all 4 questions. 1, the source of the spirit, love. 2, the reason for our existence, love. 3, what's worth living for? Love. And 4, what's worth letting the loser inside us die for that's aligned himself or herself with a bunch of ideas that are ridiculous? Love. And how is that love expressed? Is it the kind of love that's like, I don't know, can I get a date with this guy or that girl, or who's going to invite me to the prom? No. We're talking about something that you're really understanding through the master keys. And what that understanding deals with is understanding this unconditional love, connectedness, and intimacy to our fellow man, that you're nature's greatest miracle. It makes you part of nature's greatest miracle, and it makes you nature's greatest miracle, and that we're all connected. And this love is expressed with service to other people, because the divine or universal mind is here to serve, and it's going to look for the channels that it can create the biggest amount of service through. And I knew what I knew, what I knew. I knew why I was here. I knew what my personal pivotal needs were. I knew what I was going to do. We talked about in the hero's journey, I was ready for the hero's journey. It was about loss and redemption. I can't get that time back with my son. Never could. He was 17 when that realization came upon me. But what I can do, and what Davine dedicated herself to, and it's how we came together, was getting people home, or giving them the option of getting home with their kids. You see, there's an economic cancer out there, and it's shattering homes. Number one reason people get divorced, they argue about money. Number two reason, they argue about the kids. I'm telling you, if there was enough money, they wouldn't be arguing about the kids. They don't have any time with each other. They don't have time for connectedness and intimacy. So we decided, rather than worry about our business and our downlines and our volume and what the results were going to be and what our check was going to be, we got away from all that, took the hero's journey, and embarked on service to other people. Who could we get home? Who could we get home? Who could we get home? And it put us into a totally different place. It put us here in the Waimea Canyon. And now our goal is to help people understand that life's just too darn short. And what they can do to create a different life for themselves is decide who they are and where they want to live. And live in their dream. Not out here, not on a dream board, but live in it. And we wanted to provide evidence of that. You see, what happened for me that day in that class, and then by the river, was simply this. And I'm going to go back to the fly. You see, the fly can't change his mind, but you can, I can, Kathy can, Doug can. We can change our mind. Here's an interesting study that was done from MIT. And in that study, they explained it takes 1/1 billionth, not a billion volts, not a volt, but a little tiny 1/1 billionth of a volt, less electricity than you spent looking at this webcast so far. You spent more electricity logging on to this webcast than it takes to change your mind. And what I finally understood that day as I wept by the river, first in sorrow and shame, and then in being elated that I knew that I could redeem all those years by helping other people be home and wiping out the economic cancer that people are experiencing that's eating up families, eating up attitudes, and eating up the meaning of life from them, and let them reclaim their lives. It takes 1/1 billionth of a volt. And what people who go through this course and understand what I'm saying is they can capture the ability to create 1/1 billionth of a volt in other people. And there's 6 things that masters of the volt have in common. Let me share them with you right now.